Rồi mình sẽ live luôn nhé. Để
Dạ vâng ạ.
trên Facebook chắc là cũng phải mất một chút thời gian. Rồi chúng ta đã lên sóng rồi đấy ạ.
Em chưa thấy. Chắc là em vào nhầm.
Và trên page của Vietteacher cũng như là mình sang group của Vietteacher rồi.
Em xin cái link ạ.
Mình xin thử copy link ở chỗ nào đây. Trang có thể vào luôn page của Vietteacher được không Trang?
Đang vào nhưng em không thấy cái livestream ạ.
Được chị cho nó lên cùng nhé. Pin to top ở page nhé. Rồi cái livestream này đang ở trên đầu của page.
Đây rồi ạ, em nhìn thấy đây rồi ạ.
Rồi mọi người share từ đấy nhé. Copy link đây. Mình sẽ copy link này vào chat.
Chị cho vào chat box giúp em. Em không biết nó lại chạy đi đâu mất rồi.
Xin mời các thầy cô chúng ta cùng
Sắp
share.
xếp tầng hay sao, ở cái thùng nào ấy,
Có thể đông đảo các thầy cô khác.
thì ở cái thùng cắt tông nào hay là cái trong cái thùng cái kìa.
Xin phép thầy Việt Nam là tắt mic đi giúp với ạ. Cảm ơn ạ.
Vâng, xin mời các thầy cô share cái link ở trong chat box theo các đồng nghiệp của mình ạ. Chúng ta hiện nay đang có 83 người, có nghĩa là chỉ 84 thôi ạ, chỉ accept được 16 slot là tối đa thôi ạ. Còn lại thì mọi người sẽ theo dõi từ Facebook. Xin mời host của hôm nay có thể bắt đầu được rồi. Hiện nay đang là 9 giờ 1 phút.
Can I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, good morning, colleagues and participants. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to webinar 7 of professional development for K-12 teachers, hosted by Vietteacher Association. It's my pleasure and delight to be the host of the webinar 7 today. And my name is Ngọc Anh, and I'm the lecturer of English at the Faculty of Foreign Languages, Banking Academy of Vietnam. And I'm one of the members of the committee, the organizing committee of K-12 development, professional development, Vietteacher Association. Okay, so first of all, I would like to introduce a little bit about the webinar series in what we have done so far for since last August. We have organized these webinars to empower teachers, inspire learners, and promote teaching and learning in terms of English language education. And we have organized 6 so far. We have organized 6 webinars focusing on 4 key themes, including ELT methodologies, using ICT in English language teaching, testing and assessment, and professional development. And let me spend some minutes introducing some webinars we have done so far. The first webinar is Words Teaching Integrated Skills, organized on last August. Webinar second, okay. The second webinar is Words Online Branded Learning Design Delivery. Webinar 3 was on Test Design and Development. Webinar 4 was Free Online Learning Resources. And webinar 5 was Abstract Writing Words for Conference Presentations. And webinar 6 was organized on 21st of June, was attending and presenting at conferences. And now we are delighted to introduce webinar 7, Focus on Form and Focus on Meaning. And today we have 4 speakers. The first featured speaker is Dr. Chen Đăng Khánh Linh from University of Khánh Hòa, and she is US grantee to obtain TESOL Global membership and present at Camp TESOL 2018 and TESOL International Convention 2018. She is senior lecturer and teacher educator in TESOL at the University of Khánh Hòa. And today she will deliver a very important keynote on focus on meaning and focus on form in English language teaching. We also have 3 more speakers and also facilitators from primary and lower secondary education. They are Miss Ngô Thị Thủy Hương from Hòa Bình, and Miss Nguyễn Thị Dung from Hanoi, and Miss Vũ Thị Như Trang from Hanoi. And as you can see in the slide, Ms. Hương is a senior lecturer in English language teaching methodology in Hòa Bình College of Education, and she is a principal of Nguyễn Tất Thành School in Hòa Bình College of Education. She has been teaching English teaching methodology and English language skills development since 1995. Quite long, and she has presented at many national and international conferences. She was also the RELO grantee at Hòa Bình RELO 2018, and she's also the event organizer to develop ELT in Hòa Bình and in mountainous areas. The second speaker is Miss Nguyễn Thị Dung. She is currently working as an English teacher at Hanoi Thăng Long Secondary School. She published a book about English in the workplace in 2019. She's now working on some research, and she's interested in teacher education, early language education, technology in education, and neuroscientific methodologies. And the last speaker is Miss Vũ Thị Như Trang. She has been working as English teacher for 7 years at Hanoi Public School. She has won 4 awards in teaching competitions, and she is interested in teaching methodologies and science of teaching. So On behalf of their committee, I would like to say big thanks to all of the participants and the speakers for the presence of the webinar today. And especially, I really want to send my thanks to Miss Gam Chang. She's the leader of the webinar, and she has contributed a lot to the organization of this webinar, along with the organizing committee of the webinar. And yeah, so it's time to introduce our featured speaker today, Dr. Chen Dak-Kheng Ling, for the keynote of focusing on form and focusing on meaning in English language teaching. Okay, welcome, and welcome, Dr. Ling.
Well, thank you, Ngọc Anh, and good morning, everyone. So I'd like to kick off by having me sharing the screen. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Ngọc Anh, please, yeah.
Yes. Trying to stop it, but I don't know how to do it. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So as Ngọc Anh has just mentioned, our topic today is on focus on form and focus on meaning in English language teaching. And we came up with this topic out of our observation of teachers' practice and out of the theories that we have learned during our training courses and our master's or PhD courses. So in our topic today, in our webinar today, I'd like just to start with some theory related to focus on form and focus on meaning in communicative language teaching, and with a little bit comparison with task-based language teaching. And from the theory, we have a look at the context of K-12 English language teaching in Vietnam. From this, we are going to use the lens of the theory to look into our practices of using the textbooks and conducting or delivering different activities, so that we can see where we have a focus on form and where we have a focus on meaning in the class activities, as well as the effectiveness if we choose to do so in such a procedure or in a way, a particular way. So just let me start with some key points about communicative language teaching. As for the principle of communicative, as the name says, it is about communicate meanings through active use of language. And of course, in a language, we have the form, right? So when it comes to pedagogy, we mentioned the syllabus, and the typical syllabus for this approach is the notional functional one. It means that it is a compilation of language structures expressing different interactions and ideas in certain situations. So the structures is a form, is a kind of form, and the situation, ideas are the notion, and then interaction are the functions. And the focus of CLT, communicative language teaching, is on teaching both language skills and linguistic features. That means the language itself, and with more emphasis on language skills. So before we move on, I'd like to ask you some questions. So can you please spend up to 1 minute to match the terminology on the left with the definition on the right? 1 minute from now, please. So you can chat your, you can text your answers on the chat box. Now, for example, 1B or whatever. Come on, I haven't seen any answers. You can just, if you find out any one, for example, 1 or 3, you just feel free to type it. You don't need to wait until you finish everything. Good, I have 1C. Here we have 1C. Form is the linguistic features, structure, spelling, sound. Well done, Trung. All right, 1C, thank you. Yeah, so we have 2A. Yeah, meanings, language functions, messages like offering, thanking, suggesting, thank you, not 2A, and then 1C, okay. 3B, focus on form. It is the instructional practice with a primary emphasis on linguistic features. I'm sorry, not 3B. Okay, so you are nearly there. So this is the answer. You were right. The form is the linguistic features. That means the structure, the spelling, the sound of the language. And the meaning refers to language functions or messages. The thing that we really want to convey when we communicate. And with the terminology focus on form, it refers to the instructional practice with a primary emphasis on meaning. So the emphasis is still on meaning and a brief attention to linguistic features. But if you have linguistic activities that focus too much on linguistic features, the primary emphasis is on linguistic features, then we have a new term, focus on forms. So please remember the difference between focus on form, which is still acceptable in CLT, and focus on forms, which we'll discuss later. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the principle or the rationale behind different versions of CLT. So here, as literature shows, we have 2 different ends of a continuum from weak to strong CLT. It depends on how we view CLT. So for those who see learning, who look at learning as a process of analysis, the components of language, and then we learn to use English, and we from this we decide when it comes to pedagogy, we decide what to learn so that the learners can communicate. We have the weaker form of CLT. So the instruction of this strand usually focus more on form and meaning that goes together with the form, and it includes a lot of controlled practice and controlled learning for some particular or focused or targeted structures or language component. And then the emphasis first is on the accuracy of the language. It is required that the learner be able to use language accurately first, and then becomes increasingly fluent later. On the other hand, another view look at learning as an experience, at different experiences from which the learner can pick up what is useful for them. So in this view, normally the learner or the user has a need to communicate in English, they use English to learn something, and then in the same time learn English as well. So with this perspective, the focus is more on how to learn to communicate. And in terms of instructions, they believe that communication should focus more on meaning and the message that the speaker want to convey, or a writer want to convey. And when we listen or when we read something, what we can pick up from the text, or we hear or we listen. And then it is a kind of subconscious learning, and through which we activate the language we have picked up, right? And in this view, in this way of learning, first the speakers become more fluent, and then they increasingly become more accurate, more correct. So even though these 2 views have different approach, different directions to approach the final, the goal, which is communicative competence. They are, they exist parallel to each other. All right. So now for those who want to look further or who have been researching in communicative language teaching or TBLT, I would like to put here some key terms so that you you know where I am in the literature. All right. So here on the left hand side, that means the analytic learning view. We have, if we refer to task, when you study or when you research TBLT, we have enabling task, and in the middle we have focus task, which is in between, and then we have communication task, which is very strong task based. And then in literature there exist many terminologies as well, like weak versions of CLT, weak version of TBLT, strong versions of CLT and KR. And then I belong to a group of researchers and practitioners who go for the terminologies of task-based teaching, be in a very strong form in which the learners is immersed into the environment so that they can pick up the language and then become more accurate. We call that the task-based. But for those similar to the PPP that we're using here, that means we instruct the learner from, first they have a touch at in the context, the environments where the language appears, and then we practice the language. We use the language through the process of presentation, practice, production. This is called task-supported teaching. All right, so the key framework I'd like us to use today is Littlewood's continuum or scale from focus on forms. Remember, forms, not form, to focus on meaning. When designing this scale or this continuum, Littlewood was looking into all the possible classroom activities or syllabi that we have, no matter or whether it is traditional or communicative. So it is a five category continuum. On the left hand side, we have non-communicative learning, which focus on the structures of language, how they are formed and what they mean. For example, I think you may remember time in the classroom when you yourself learned English, or you allowed students now to do drill substitution exercises just for the sake of getting the correct answer, right? And this is called non-communicative learning. And then moving rightwards, towards the right, we have pre-communicative language practice or communicative language practice. These are in fact practice, not used yet. So for pre, we practice English language with some attention to meaning, but not communicating new messages to others. There is no new messages. But when it comes to communicative, we have the new information to convey, to express. So the difference is that whether we have new message to convey or not. So question and answer practice, in which one of the speakers know the answer already. They are just trying to see whether the expression is correct or not. We have pre-communicative. But if when we ask somebody, a person, and we expect them to answer without knowing what the answer is, but we know that we are talking about, we know what we are talking about. We have a frame, we have something like a card to base on, then it is communicative language practice. We often see this with information gap activities in the classroom. And more communicatively, we have structured communication and authentic communication. They are real, as you say, this is communication already, not just practice. So here, the learners use the language to communicate in different situations. The difference is that with structured communication, the teachers usually aim at having the students communicate some pre-learned language, pre-taught language, but with some unpredictability in it. Now, for example, I can give one student a list of commodities sold in a shop, and then I give another student a list of 3 things to buy. The 3 things, of course, have to be enlisted. All right, and then I ask them to role play that situation using the information in the prompts. Right, so in here, I'm quite sure what language the students are going to use. So it is kind of structured. But in authentic communication, we don't know what language form, what language structures is going to be used because it includes creative role play. It is more complex problem solving and discussion and so on. I can give you, so if you are, again, if you are researching, you are interested in the literature, you can use this terminology for further reading. Here are some more examples. If you just, in the class, you ask the student to listen and tap the words they hear, then it is just non-communicative. But if they ask them to analyze a sample paragraph and then write a paragraph, analyze it to see the structure and the structure of the paragraph, the structure of the sentences, and then write a similar one on the same topic. We don't change the topic, all right? And then it is pre-communicative. But in communicative, you ask students to describe pictures and find differences, for example. And then for guided conversation, as I mentioned before, it is structured communication. And then if we are in the class, we say, oh, let's say National Day is coming. We can have a picnic, of course, without COVID. Huh? All right, then let's discuss and suggest a destination for class picnic. So the ideas may be unpredictable, and the students have to use different kinds of languages to persuade, to argue, and so on. So this is, again, I'd like you to bear in mind this continuum from focus on forms to focus on meaning. If in your class, according to Littlewood, if in your class you have any of these activities, it's okay. It is still communicative, but of course it depends on something we will unfold later. But if in your class you have too many activities that focus, that fall into these 2 categories, then I'm sorry to say your class, your lesson is more focused on forms. That means it provides very few opportunities for the students to communicate. Right, so now let's go to our context. Before we move on, I'd like you to either scan this code or use the code here, or use the link here to go to Mentimeter, right? The best way to use the link is to use the link. Okay, I need to share the link. Tamtra has shared the link on the Zoom chat. Can you please use the link to go to the poll and answer the question there? There's only one question, very easy one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's very interactive. Interesting, we have more other textbooks than the mainstream one. Mm-hmm. right. So just 10 more seconds. We have 20, 17, 8 total. 47. Just half of us have done this. Come on. Interesting. 52 people already. All right. 19, 54. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. So let's start here. All right. So it seems that we have more members of other textbooks than our targeted audience, right? So 60 here with just nearly half, more than one third, doing the new series of textbooks by the Ministries of Education and Learning, right? So Tiếng Anh by MOET, I mean the new series of Tiếng Anh 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And this one's the old one, the old version, right? All right, so in this case, all right, in this case, we are going to open a discussion later near the end of by the end of the webinar today, so that we can look into other textbooks, right? Because of the target audience today is mainly on the teachers teaching in using the textbooks by MOET. We have mainly prepared materials and analysis on that series of textbooks, but actually we did look into a couple of textbooks like Solutions, Engage, so that we can have to see the sequence of sections there to have some comparison. So hope that we will have a very interesting discussion near the end. All right, so let me continue. Again, I get back to mainstream K-12 ELT in Vietnam. So as far as I have read from the literature and documents from MOET, the main teaching approach we have is CLT, and the syllabus, no matter what is the textbooks by MOET or not, they are mainly notional functional. And for secondary level textbooks, we have the Tiếng Anh 12, 6 to 12 in the mainstream schools, and other communication-oriented textbooks in private schools, as we have just seen in the poll, right? For class procedures, the two most popular, the most popular is PPP, present practice and presentation, practice and production, and some use touch-based, right? About the class types, you may have heard about this session should be language-based, or that lesson should be skills-based, and so on. So we will discuss this later. All right, so now let's have a look at the Tiếng Anh, the new series of textbooks. So for those who are using this, can you please tell me, this time you can just unmute and then answer quickly, right? So how many sessions are there in each unit of this textbook? Can someone? Others, you can also type, right? Maybe 7, your answers. 9, oh, 7. All right, 7, yeah, thank you. Yeah, there are 7. All right, which sessions are language-based? That means the focus is more on grammar or vocabulary. Do you remember? What are the names of the sessions? Do you remember? Language and focus, kind of. Yeah, but that's not the name. Getting started, really. All right. Yeah. And all right. So how about the sessions? Closer look one, yeah. A closer look, yes. And how about the sessions that's focused more on skills, or we often call it the skill-based sections. Skills 1, skills 2. Well done. Closer look, I think. Honeysuckle. Okay, suckle, all right. Communication, right? Skills 1, 2. All right. And what procedure do you often use for language-based lessons? That means for the lessons that focus on grammar or vocabulary. What procedure, what sequence? PPP, yeah, right. So yeah, many of you say PPP, yeah. And how about the procedure for skill-based lessons? For skill-based lesson, PPP as well? PPP and TBLT, really, right? Yeah, all right, task-based, yeah. I mean, I refer to the different stages in the class. During the lesson, you start with what, you continue with what. If you are teaching, let's say skills one, session skills 1, or you are having the student to do the reading class, then pre, while, post. Yeah, this is what we often talk about when we are doing methodology classes. All right, so this is the answer, the final answer. Yeah, there are 7 parts in the New Tiếng Anh, 6 to 12, right? The name is Getting Started, a closer look 1, closer look 2, and then we have culture and communication, and then skills 1, skills 2. Skills 1 comprises reading and speaking, skills 2, listening and writing, and then looking back in project. So, all right, and then the purpose of Getting Started is to provide a context where the target language appears, and usually we can use the pre, while, post here because this one is kind of hybrid one. Later, if we have time, we can discuss more because we can exploit it as a skills lessons or as a language lesson, right? But normally for later, I will tell you why it can be a skills lesson. All right, and then for session 2 and 3, it's more focused on language, and usually we usually use PPP, and then it's about language use is in culture and communication with the pre, while, post sequence or procedure, and then we have skills development in session 5 and 6 with the pre, while, post sequence, and this one is the revision for tests and for wrap up on the what we have learned, and then there are authentic tasks. Here I do not suggest any or do not put down any procedure or sequence. The reason why we will tell later. All right, so normally when we talk about PPP or pre, while, post, we are talking about the sequences of activities, the sequence of activities within one lesson. Have you ever thought of looking at different sections in a book under the lens, in the lens from the perspective of PPP or whatever? Any of you? All right. All right. So for me, I tend to, if I look at the link between the different sessions of the unit, I can say that from session 1 to 4, in fact, can represent another sequence of PPP with session 1, the P1, in which the language is presented in context. And then in session 2 and 3, we pick out the target language, we practice it, And then in P3, we put it back into new context with some culture factors, elements, and we communicate. So P3 is like the production after we accumulate, we are introduced to the language in session 1 and practice in session 2 and 3, right? And then come session 4. Or looking bigger, I can also see a bigger sequence that can encompass different on the stages here, on the sections here in the unit. That is, after we have the mini PPP in list lessons, a series, a bigger PPP in a series of 4 lessons, we have the learners, the students have accumulated some kind of knowledge here already, right? So we can call that P1. And then during that, during section 5 and 6, the next 2 lessons, there we provide more opportunities, more context, more environment for the students to practice and to communicate, to have control practice and so on of the language that they have picked up here. And finally, we have P3 in form of a very big task, a project. Here I think looking back, it can serve a dual purpose. First, to serve testing, and second, to remind the students of what they have learned before they perform in the tasks. All right, so with this big PPP, there are 2 options of how to conduct it. Normally, we have on the previous P's here in class. Yeah, on these you can usually have to happens in the classroom, right, normally. But for the last one, if you read the teacher's book, you can see that projects can be assigned as homework, right? So here, the last P can be in class if you want to, or can be outside class as a project. But how? Right? So if we look at on the series of the book, of the section is the unit, we see that, and we consider this as P3, it means that we need to embed some elements of the project during the lessons from section 1 to section, maybe except for section 1, from lesson 2 to lesson 6 already. If you are going to look at this as P3, it is necessary for you to embed, to integrate, or even highlight some parts so that the students can have some input and practice enough for them to perform the project here. And for those who are interested in TBLT, this section alone can be said to be very task-based, strong task. But this strong standalone task here, if it is conducted outside the classroom as a independent task, it is in fact has some relation to the earlier sections of the book. So this is my read of the sequence of the sessions in the book. Right? So let's go deeper into some techniques that we can use in the classroom using the textbooks. So far we have looked at some theory to see the principle, the rationales behind what we're supposed to do in the classroom with the textbooks, with the PPP, or another procedure, as you may point out and discuss later. Now, our main role is to understand the textbook and then to teach it, or to have different kind of classrooms. And because the focus of our webinar today is focus on form or focus on meaning, so have a look at how to teach the language components, right? So now everyone, if we have the word bicycle, in order to be able to see whether we should focus on form or focus on meaning, first we need to see the main components of the words. So first, it is the image that a person have when they hear or they see the word bicycle, right? So for example, when you see the word bicycle, if in your mind there is this image, then you see it is a component of the word.
Bicycle.
The sound is also a component of the word, as it can be put like this, and then finally the word itself. So can you tell me which one is the form of the language and which one is the meaning, sorry, the form of the word, and which one is the meaning of the word? The image itself is meaning or form? The image in your mind. Yes.
Bicycle.
Yeah, so the image is the meaning, right? And the pronunciation, yeah, it's just the form. If you hear it and we don't have the image in your mind, it is just the form, right? And the word, the spelling, it is also just a form. If you don't really have the image in your mind of what it is, right? And it is important that when we teach this language component, we can teach both the meaning and the form, right? But how? So here, sometimes I could observe many of my students to say, have a tendency to translate the word into Vietnamese. But I would argue that say that is still the form. It's the spelling of an image. If you don't have an image in your mind, then you are just focusing on form, not on meaning. Right. So what are the steps for a logical way of teaching vocabulary item? Can you spend, I say, first 1 minute to read this and put them in order? You can write in the checkbox, you can put something like 2, 3, 5, 6 or whatever, right? So we start with two or five, two, all right, and then keep going. Okay, the answer is here, 2, 5, 1, 4, 6, 3. All right, so first, we need to convey the meaning of the new word by defining it or by using a visual. Here we put the meaning in a context, and then we elicit the word. That means we ask questions or we say something so that the students can see the meaning, the image, a notion, a concept from the words or from the visual. And then we we concept check the meaning of the new word, all right? And then we provide a clear oral model of the word, then drill the word with learners both orally and individually so that the students can remember how to say it, and finally write the word on the board, indicating the word class, noun, verb, or whatever, and making the stress if possible, right? So remember this. This is the sequence for teaching vocabulary. All right. So here I have another task for you. So first of all, here we have got the sequence already, how to teach it. But why? Why do we have to follow these steps in such a sequence? Can you please match the steps here with the rationales behind it? Another 1 minute, and then why do we need to convey the meaning? By defining it or using a visual. To see, then it needs to feel sure about the meaning of the word before they say it. To F, it is often a good idea for learner to say the word. No, it's about saying, so not F. To it just convey the meaning as usual. So to see, how about 5? Elicit the word. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Keep going. Mm-hmm. Keep going. How about 1? All right. Good. 2C, 5F, 1D, 1B. Okay, the answer is here. We know that we start with 2. Convey the meaning of new word by defining it or using a visual. Why? It is for the learner to be able to provide the word. It is necessary that the meaning be clearly established with an image, by using visual or a definition of it, right? And then, can you please mute yourself? Right. And then we elicit the word. And then if the learner still not know it, it's okay. If we elicit the word and then nobody could answer, just say it, pronounce it, say the word yourself. Or if the learner can say the word but pronounce it incorrectly, we just pronounce the word correctly again. Why? So, because if we allow them a chance to try it and it's correct, it is very affirming for them, right? And they like learning. And then once the words, the pronunciation, the sound of the words has come up together with the visual or the definition, then we need to check the concept behind it to make sure that everyone have an image, the right image on their mind, right? Because learners need to feel sure about the meaning of the word before they say it. And then you provide a clear oral model of the word so that the learner can hear the pronunciation before they can repeat it, and then drill the word with learners, both orally, individually, they say the word, right? So it is often a good idea for learners to say the word before they see it written down, especially in English, because the spelling may have nothing related, okay, not nothing, but can be very different from the pronunciation, right? And finally, write the word on the board, because the learner needs a written record of the words and they need to find out how it is spelled, right? So we have 2D, 5B, 1C, 4A, 6F, 3E. All right, so you, if you cannot take note now, you could see this. I will share the slides later, no worries. So get back. So how can we teach the word bicycle after we have learned the sequence? Okay, I'd like to demo it. All right, so for students who learned unit 1 of the textbook, they know these 2 characters. Do any of you know? This is Duy and this is V, right? So first I would say, oh, V and Duy live near the school. They go to school by, and then I put this image. So I elicit, so by, look everyone, by, and some students can say bicycle, or if they cannot, and then say, okay, so by, yeah, bicycle.
Bicycle.
Yeah, bicycle, bicycle. Again, everyone, bicycle.
Bicycle.
Right, right. This, and there was bicycle, right? Bicycle. But in short, people can also say bike instead of bicycle. So again, everyone, a bicycle, bicycle, yeah, a bike. But you, please, you too, yeah, this group, right? Okay. So now back to our sentence. V and Duy go to school by, yeah, bicycle or by bike. Thank you. This is how I teach the item bicycle. So I comes from the context, very small context here, and then the meaning first, then the sound, that means which is the form, and then the spelling of the form, and I further explanation if there is any, and finally get back to to the context where the word appears. So put the word in context, then meaning, and then sound, and then spelling. All right. So for further practice here, I have 9 words, but because limit of time, let's just try, let's say try number 1 and number 5 and number 9, for example. 1, 5, 9. You can use some techniques here. Mime, that means you act, right? Realia, that means real objects. Picture, visual, or personal anecdote. Antonym, synonym, oral definition, explanation, or example. All right, or translation. All right. So for furniture, number 1, picture, explanation. Yeah. Yeah. So now I can give you an example. For teaching picture, I can list some examples. So I say tables, chairs, beds. These are all tables, chairs, beds, desks, right? They are all, yeah, furniture, right? So everyone, furniture, right? Now, can you give me some another example of furniture? V, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so another one, a wardrobe. Yes. Oven. I'm sorry, no, we don't call that furniture, right? Usually it's made of wood, or we can see it in living room, the bedroom. For those things in the kitchen, we have another word. We often call white goods. White goods. Okay, so now for number 5, mime. Yeah, good idea. And then for number 9, and 9, mime. Forget. Yeah, you can also mime it by clicking on your head, and then, but it needs to be in a situation. Okay, so rice can use realia. We have some fly to kite, mime, open, close. We can use realia, the door of the classroom, and together with the word, the saying, cold, mime, right? My feeling cold, and ask, what am I doing? Oh, sorry, what am I feeling, right? And then honest, explanation. Yeah, honest is an interesting one, right? So we can give examples, situation, and then we can even use translation to reaffirm, right? And then complain, you can give example, is because it's more abstract. Intelligent, we can use synonym, antonym. Another word for clever, for example. And forget, we can have different ways. Yeah, with mimes, I could see some teachers just ask, how do you say one in English? Please, this one is just our last resort. Don't use it. Don't get the habit of using this. Yeah? You can mime looking for your keys in the bag, and then you search the pocket, look at the desk, and then you say, I forget where my keys are. Where is it? And then, okay, so I forget it. And then, so what the Vietnamese word for forget? So if we use translation this way to trigger some imagination, some understanding, then it's okay. Don't just ask them a direct question. What is one in English, right? So to wrap up, can you please fill in each gap here with one word or phrase here? You have 1 minute to do it. One, yeah, the first one, meaning and pronunciation, good. The second one, yeah. How about the second line? Context, right? Good. Third one, context, this pronunciation, meaning, yeah. Okay. How about situation? So the last one easy. Okay, the answer. This meaning and pronunciation together with spelling. So meaning together with pronunciation, this in this form. That means we must teach meaning and form together. All right. And then the meaning needs to be put in specific contexts, because it's very important to work out the meaning of context, the meaning of a word or piece of language from context. And then the meaning of new word can be taught through pictures, mime, real objects, as well as from a situation in context. Again, remember the role of context in teaching for meaning. And finally, teachers need to ask questions to check what students understand, to check if students to check that students understand the meaning, right? Okay, so now how about teaching grammar? Look at this, everyone. I have two pictures here. Which one refers to the meaning and which one refers to the form? Picture meaning, good. And the other is the form. So with this, I mean, please do not focus too much on the structures here without paying due attention to the photos, the pictures along the sections in the book. All right. So what can be a problem of explaining grammar rules? It can be too abstract. It can take the teacher to talk too much. There's many. So here I've got to introduce 3 approaches to teaching grammar. The first one is text-based approach. You will find it very familiar to you. And then the task. There are 2 names for this one. And then the context build or situational presentation. You will find these, the first 2, very familiar. All right, so now, again, 1 minute to order these. And these together are different stages of the text-based approach. You can start with the first one in the chat box. 3. Good. 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 5, 4, 6. 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 4, 6. Oh, 6 at the end. Really? Okay, so. Sorry. All right. So for the text-based approach, all right. So first, number 3, learners read or listen to text, and then they answer comprehension questions about information in the text. It's number 2, right? And then the teacher sets a task that allows learners to discover 1 or 2 examples of the target language in the text without necessarily saying what the grammar point is. And then they write the example, 1 example on the board. And then they check the meanings by asking concept check questions. And then they highlight the form of the target language again, how it is structured and so on. And then learners do a controlled practice task to check their understanding of the form and meaning. So in what stage do we have the context of the language, everyone? Yeah, as you may mention, you may notice, it is here the text that we are listening to or we are listening or we are reading. But in real life, people do not read or listen to analyze where's the verbs, where's the noun, what this means, one particular word. Yeah, they listen for communicative purpose, communication purpose. So what next should be comprehension questions to make sure that they understand the text correctly. And only after they understand the text correctly, this one is the focus is on meaning, right? And then we pick out examples of the target language, and then we check the meaning on the examples. We highlight that and we check the meaning to, that is related to that target language. And only after the meaning is correct, we highlight the form. And when we do practice test to link the form and the meaning. So it is, so do you think that it is similar to what procedure you are very familiar of. We have a text, comprehension, and the language to practice. Yeah, the PPP. Yeah. So now back a little bit to the teach test. Now again, your turn. Reorder the stages. Okay, the first one, of course, not checks, huh? Right, errors, where errors? Ask learners to redo no. Six, do a freer oral practice, freer. If we have here before that, should be, there should be something else. Yeah. Four. Oh yeah, so maybe 6. Yeah, yeah, 6, 4, 3. Okay, the answer. All right, you are right. Number 6, free, freer or free. Yeah, oral practice task. Here they freer in the text. Original one, they use freer oral practice text because before that we can focus on grammar. It just if we put it in a lesson sequence, it's not at the beginning of the lesson, right? So the learners do a freer oral practice task that encourages the use of target language the teacher wants to focus on in the lesson. So they start with the use. Use that means the first P or second P or last P, everyone, the use of the language. So this is P3, right? And then the teachers listens to learners and notes down any errors. Okay, so errors here is acceptable. Notes down the errors they make using the target language. And then they write up the errors associated with the target language on the board and elicit corrections from the class. And then they use oral concept checking to check the meaning of the correct language on the board already. Or if we have a not very strong class, the teachers can show a pre-prepared learner-centered task in this phase. All right, so they start with use and then errors. They test the students and then let them to make mistakes and then elicit correction of the mistakes, right? Check the meaning of the correct ones and then check the form as well so that they can see the link between the meaning and the form, and then ask the learners to redo the original task that use the target language. So they start with use and then correction and then use, test, teach, and then test. For those who research TBLT, you may find this a very strong form of task-based, based on task. Do the task first and teach later, all right? Now, the last approach, now your turn again. We call that the context-built approach. So, here you go. Number 3, good. First answer already, yeah. Next. Oh, wow. 6, 4, 1, 3, 5, 2. 6, 4, 1, 3, 5, 2. Yeah. from 3 to 1, 3, 1. All right. The answer, number 3. They use the teacher uses visuals and word prompts to build a context, again, context, that will generate examples of target language. And then 1, the teacher elicits or gives an example sentence of the target language, writing it on the board. And then use oral concept check-in to check the meaning of the target language. All right. And then having checked, the teacher highlights the form and then rub the example sentence off the board. All right. So example, check meaning, check for highlight form, and then rub the sentence off the board. And then they write up the keywords or the prompts on the board that are clearly connected to the context earlier. And they use model and real examples. And then the prompts are used to model or drill examples of the target language. And finally, they elicit an example on the board for a second time, highlight aspects of pronunciation that have just been practiced. Yeah, so this one is very, very different, right? So starting from context, and then example and meaning, and then form, keywords for model and drill, and then example. All right, so can you tell me, with on the 3 approaches so far, this is the summary. Can you please complete the grid by placing only one word? Oh, here, this is okay, in each space, okay? One minute. Number 1, listening, well done. Next, number 2, examples. Listening, examples. Right, example, yeah. Number 3, practice. A free oral practice task, yeah. How about number 4? Number 4. Oh, wait. So practice, okay. Number 4, questions. Checking questions, yeah. And we have 2 times. Question is repeated 2 times, yeah? All right. Okay, the answer. Yeah, in text-based approach, we provide the context by providing a listening or reading text, right? And then for highlighting the target language, we underline examples of the target language, and we check by giving a learner-centered task. In the test approach, the context is provided through a free oral practice task, and then we correct errors, and then we check concept orally through questions and board analysis of form. So, right, concept check is about meaning, and then analysis of form. And then in the context build approach, the visuals the context is provided via visuals or story or context, right? We have story or context created from visuals, right? And then we elicit an example, and we ask concept checking questions again, and then we analyze the form on the board again, all right? So which one is closest to PPP? What approach is closest to PPP? Test-based or test or context builds? No, the 3 approaches here. Which one is closest to the PPP? Context build. You elicit an example, you already check in, and then analyze the form, and then practice that, right? How about text-based? Context build using, so how about getting started? In the book, do we have visuals? Yes, right? But do we have a text to read and to listen to? Yes, too, right? We have a conversation to read and to listen, and then we have the picture, the visuals. Yeah, so many of you tend to skip the visuals here, but in fact the visual can help a lot, right? And then you can elicit an example, or you can underline this kind of, but the difference is here we are more, yeah, we analyzing things in the practice stage, right? So having mentioned the rationale, the principle behind CLT, the principle and the rationale, the steps and everything behind PPP and the sequence of sections in the unit. We have also looked at ways to teach vocabulary items and to teach grammar. So what lesson can we learn about CLT? Oh. So it should be noticed that meaning and form and meaning are taught together, right? And the meaning is needed to be taught in context. Remember the role of the context. And as Noonan put it, the pedagogy sequence in our lesson begins with a focus on the communicative end. Remember the continuum? The communicative end is towards the right, with structured communication or authentic communication. Here they say, the Noonan doesn't say begins at the end of the continuum, but towards on the communicative end rather than the linguistic means. That means rather than on the left. So we start with something towards the right of the continuum rather than the left of the continuum. And he also says that a focus on form better comes near the end of the sequence. That means don't start with a focus on form, right? In fact, Noonan suggested a 6-step sequence, and he say the focus on form better fits in step 4. So if you are interested in his work, you can search for Noonan 2012, and it will be provided in the reference book as well, in reference list as well. And remember that if you focus too much on form, you have many activities, and you spend too much time on form, you can ruin the communication purpose of a lesson, making it focus on forms. All right, and how about the PPP? Sorry. All right. How about the PPP, right? It is a perspective on what to learn to communicate, right? And it allows meaning to be presented in context before the form is highlighted and analyzed to see the link between meaning and form. And it is more than a procedure for one lesson. You can use it, you can adapt this view to look at sequences, the sequence of different sections in the unit, because it can, this works for several sessions of a unit as well. And also remember, it is not the only way to teach English for communication, as you have just seen the 3 approaches. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. For the next part, we are going to have demonstrations and further analysis from other speakers. So may I introduce Ms. Hương, Ngô Hương. So I'm going to stop my shares here. On my slides, there's a glossary session, and then a reference with a little on another textbook. If we have time, we will have a look at this later. So now, I give the stage, the screen, not the stage, to Ms. Hương now. Ms. Hương, please. If you have questions, would you mind wait until the end of our shares, and then we will have a very cordial talk then, cordial discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Ling, for very interesting and interesting discussion. And you know, I find many theoretical, conceptual, and practical dimensions in your talk. And I think your talk is not just only useful for practitioners, but also for researchers as well, because you have presented a lot of theoretical and conceptual frameworks by Littlewood and Noonan and many other ELT experts. So yes, as Dr. Ling said, it's time for to go further discussion on textbook with form and meaning. And I would like to introduce Ms. Hương from Hòa Bình, and she will give us more discussion into textbook, lower secondary textbooks. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Ngọc Anh.
Ms. Hương, welcome.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and sorry. So to clarify the things that you have just listened to Dr. Ling discuss with you, so now I am going to point out some common tasks used in teaching vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar in the new textbook English 6 by Moet. And then this can help you to see which tasks focus mainly on form and which tasks focus mainly on meaning. Okay, so I also follow the framework that introduced by Little Dr. Ling has just presented and discussed with you. And the task I take from the course book English 6 version 1 here. Okay, and the first one, I'd like to give you the type of the task that we use to teach the vocabulary and help the student to learn non-communicating. So from the course book, you can see that this type of task help the student to learn the form of the words, because when the student listen to the words, they repeat the word. I mean that the sound, and the sound also related to the form when we teach the vocabulary. And this one also, when the student listen and write down the words they hear into the correct places. When the student hear, they also hear the sound. And when they write down the word, they also see the spelling of the words. And this also related to the form. And for teaching the pronunciation, we also get in the textbook also has some tasks that help the student to know about the form of the pronunciation. I mean that the sounds. For example, in this one, in this task, the student listen and number the word that they hear. They just hear the sound and then they number the word. And they can see the word here, also the spelling. So this is related to the form. And for the exercise 6, the task 6 here, the student listen and pay attention to the bold type part of the words. This is also related to the form when the student hears the sound, but it a little bit related to the meaning, because this words is used in the sentences. As Dr. Ling said, we teach form and meaning together, but in this type, the task, we focus mainly on form. And the second task, we also have the student to listen and repeat the words. This is also related to the sound, and the sound is the form of the words. Or the student work in pair to put the word in the correct column here, related to the sound and also the spelling of the words. So for the pronunciation task, we have 2 types of tasks like this, and the next task also the same. The student listen or repeat or write down the word to hear the sound or to see the spelling of the words. And for the next one, this one, I'd like you to tell me this type task related to what language we teach to the student. Okay, you can type the answers in the chat box. Okay, so this is write down the comparative form in the table below. So when we talk about this one, it's something related to the grammar. Okay, so this is just only the form. The student just only write how to form the comparative form of the adjective here. And the second one, in this one, the student have to fill in writing is or are to complete the sentences. This is also related to the form, but is have something related to the meaning, because the student need to use this word is or are in the sentences. They have the meaning, but sometimes the student don't have to think much about the meaning. They just see a here, so they can write is here, or to here, they can write are here when the student learned about the grammar. The next one, they also had to put the adjective into the correct column for one syllable or two or three, etc. So the student can just only write the spelling of the words. So this is also related to the form. And all the type of the tasks related to the teaching grammar, but we mainly focus on the form. And that's something a little bit related to the meaning when the grammar is doing in the sentences. Okay, so for the second framework of Littlewood, we think about the pre-communicative language practice. So how about the vocabulary tasks that they use in the textbook? What are they? The first one, in this type, the task, the student also have to write the words from this book into the correct column here. And here, related a little bit to the meaning of the word. I mean that the student need to understand the meaning, know the meaning of the word, and they know what it was mean, and they can write out into the correct column. However, this is not too much related to the meaning, and also still related to the form. So this type of task is usually used for the pre-communicative language practice. And I have the second one. In this one is also the same. The student can make the verb with a suitable noun here, okay? So it's also related a little bit to the meaning, but mainly focused on the form. So like go to a pagoda or other thing, etc. Yeah, and the next one is also the same. Like I have already explained in the first section. A little bit related to the meaning, because in this one the student have to know which word they can fill in this gap to make these sentences meaningful. So they have to think about the meaning. However, they have the words here. They don't have to think more about the other. And how about the grammar? When we talk about grammar, we use to teach for the pre-communicative. So in this one, okay, so can you tell, you can think about this one. The student also have the clue here to know when they can use should or shouldn't. They have the clue here, okay, and it related a little bit to the meaning. And in this one, it's also the same. They fill in the gap with the adjective in the box. They can see the pictures, they can read the sentences, and they think about the word, they choose the adjective to fill in the gap. So I think this type of task it also have the student to teach the student to the pre-communicative practice. For the third frame from the Littlewood, it means that we are going to have the student to go to the communicative practice language. So which tasks are commonly in the textbook when we use to have the student to learn vocabulary for the communicative practice language. And when I look into the book, I can point out some type of text here, and you can see here. This is related to the meaning. I can say both form and meaning, but this rather related on the meaning, not on the form, because the student need to understand the meaning, and then they know how to match a word to go together, like to go to a pagoda or other thing, and then from this word they filled in this one to talk about the Tet, or which is not about the Tet, and from this one they also work do the role play, yeah. And in this one we can't expect the information that the student are going to talk about, because it depends on the student what they want to talk about, but they also have the language to use. And the second one, that is also have the language here to have the student to choose a day of the week and then write down what they do in those days. And then they also do the role play in this one. So the information we can't guess what they are going to talk about, but it also have the language for the student to use in this situation, in this exercise, this task. So I mean, it's rather controls here. And what about the grammar? When we teach the grammar, what they have the student to read to the communicative language practice, and some tasks I take from the book. We also can see here we have the information gap. I mean that the student A have the information about the time 8 to 9 p.m. the different one, and the student B also have the another. They have the different information, and then they do the role play here. No, they ask and answer the question. Okay, and the next one, in this one, we also have the two different picture, like Dr. Lin said that when we draw a picture and then find out the differences. So this also can help the student to read to the communicative, because the student have to think about the thing that they are going to talk, and we can get the information that the student are going to talk about. And the next one is also the same, like something the same with this one, but we also give the student the structure for the student to think, to talk about it. And when we move to the fourth one, I mean that's a task for the structured communication. In this one, both vocabulary and grammar use together. They don't use separate. Because when have the student to communicate, the student now need to have vocabulary, and they need to know which structure or which grammar point they use to talk or to express the idea. So in this one, in the textbook, the task is combined using the vocabulary and using the grammar point that they have already learned from the lesson. So I can see, I see this type of the task like a working group, and also answers question about Vietnam, and they also have some prompt here, some group here to help the student to talk about it, like talking about the weather or traveling or natural attraction. So in this one, the student can use the language freely, depend on their own competencies, and depend on their knowledge, and then they can express the idea. And the meaning in this one, the message in this one, we can guess, but we can't get exactly what they are going to talk about. It depends on the person in this one. And the second one, we also have the two map about the different city, and the student also can choose to talk about the user language, the user vocabulary, or the grammar structure they have already learned about, and they talk about it. And this is we control them by using some vocabulary that they have already learned, or they can use some grammar point that they have already learned to express their idea in this one. So in this one, both vocabulary and grammar are used together. And maybe when we give the feedback, we also can have the student to pay attention to the pronunciation. And we move to the next one, the authentic communication. And in this one, in the textbook, the new series textbook, and you can see that they appear mainly in the projects. Okay, so you can see here. And in this case, the student use the language they learn in the real situation to talk about the thing that they want to talk freely. And they have to deal with the real thing, the real situation, and express their own idea. So you can see, for example, in this one. On the second one, in this one, okay, I have a dream, or in this one the student think about the thing that they want to talk in the new year, etc. And maybe this one. Okay, so in this one, both vocabulary or language grammar points student use in this one freely. And we also pay attention to the pronunciation when we have the student, we give the feedback to the student. And in this one, we also have to pay attention to fluency, both fluency and accuracy, to have the student to use the language correctly and meaningfully. Okay, so there are some types of tasks, some common tasks that I take from the textbook to help you to know clearly which task is mainly focused on form and which task is mainly focused on meaning. However, form and meaning we sometimes can't separate because it needs to relate to each other, to close to each other. We teach together to have the student to understand this clearly how to use the language. Okay, so it is my presentation, and now to make it more clearly in one section that taken from one textbook, I'd like to introduce Dr. Ling again, and she will give you a real example that take from the textbook in teaching vocabulary to see the stages of teaching form and then move to the meaning, how the consequence of the task. Okay, thank you for listening.
All right, sorry, I was on mute and I started talking. All right, so thank you, Ms. Hương. In fact, what I'd like you to have a look at is just 4 sections in Closer Look 1 of Unit 1, in list 6, right? So as Ms. Hương mentioned before, we have different types of exercises or tasks in the book. Some uncommunicative, other brief, and other communicative, and even to the project which is communicative. So the problem is that you may have is that sometimes if we just look at the content of one section of one exercise, we find it focused too much on form, right? So now, for example, if you look at, this is a Closer Look 1 teaching vocabulary. In session 1, they just ask you to listen, other students to listen and repeat the words. So if you want to see whether it is meaning or form, just play the role of the student. So if you listen and repeat, then it's more on form rather than any meaning. If I don't know the meaning of physics, I can still repeat it, right? But then in number 2 here, look at this. Work in pairs, put the words in one here into groups. So here we have to combine the words here with either play or do or have or study. So in order to know where to put, you need some meaning in that. So here, this is where meaning starts to appear, right? And so for example, we can say play judo, but not play school lunch. Why? Because of the meaning, right? And then here, you may skip this, but for me, it is very important. Add more nouns to the groups. So if you as a teacher insist on having students to put more here, they can develop their vocabulary in context here and with meaning, and both form and meaning, because we say study science, but we don't say do. We have school lunch, or yeah, so on. So it is very context based. So don't skip this. And then if you look at exercise 3 here, they asked put one of these words in each blank. Lesson 0. Okay, so here the sentence here, the sentences here, the words around the gap serves as the context, a mini context for meaning to pop up. So here there's meaning and the form to put in the meaning. So again, with this one, we have meaning. With this one, we have more meaning. And then in exercise 4, there's only one line, but a very important one. Please don't skip this, especially if your class is not a very weak one, as someone mentioned in the textbooks that they teach students in mountainous areas, regions. We will discuss that later. All right, so here they say, write sentences about yourself using the combinations above, right? So about yourselves. So isn't it communication? And especially if you, after the students write using these words, we allow them to have a chance to exchange information, ask and answer, or present in the class so that people get to know more about the students and that. So if we look at the sequence here, we can see the flow from form only to a little bit meaning plus form, but still, yeah, here form and meaning, and then more meaning, and then even more meaning. And here it is at the on the right hand side of the continuum, we have communication, but communication with the informations, with the forms here. So it is structured communication, right? So if we look at the different exercise, the flow here, in a logic, we can decide where to start and where to finish, right? Using the approaches we have learned. Now, so that's it. I just want to draw your attention to the flow of the book design in the exercises here. So back to you, the speakers, next speaker. So Ms. Hương, you still have something to share? Or we move on to the next speaker? And in that case, Ngọc Anh, could you please continue?
We can move to the next one, and then the sharing.
Yeah. So first I stop sharing, right?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for your discussion and analysis into the components of the units and the lessons in the textbook. And I think that all the participants here and the practitioners who are viewing, who are watching our live stream in VTSO Association will find your sharing practical and you know, kind of inspiring for them to apply the new things in their teaching. I want to introduce two more speakers who will give even more practical insights into the lesson delivery, because they are currently teaching in lower secondary schools and primary schools, and they will demonstrate their real teaching and analyze how they teach based on meaning and form focus, so that the participants here can have more ideas and information about, you know, how to implement form and focus teaching in real lessons. Okay, so I'd like to invite Ms. Dung from Hanoi Thăng Long School. She will demonstrate a lesson and then analyze her lessons based on the pedagogical implications. Okay, welcome.
Okay. Right, thank you, Ms. Ngọc Anh, and my name is Nguyễn Dung, and I'm from Hanoi Thăng Long School in Hà Đông District. And I'm gonna share my screen, well, actually a real lesson. So actually this one, it's my today's presentation. So it's gonna be two parts. First of all, I'm gonna demonstrate the real lesson plans about the section 1, getting started, unit 7, Know It English textbook. And the second part of my speech today, it's about the comparison, and also I'm gonna analyze my lesson lesson plan with the continuum of Littlewood. So basically, for the first section of Unit 7, television, it is about getting started. And for this section, the objectives that I would like my students to have is to get to know some program relating to the topic. They're gonna know and define or tell the difference among the program. And second objective is they can use the adjective to talk about the TV program, or you can say like describe a program. So here is the whole lesson. So you can see here there are some kind of exercise from number 1 to number 4. So under my observation and so analysis, I find out that there's not only about the form or not only about the meaning, but I divide my lesson into 2 parts. First of all, I would like to teach them about the vocabulary, and the second part of my lesson is about the adjective. So it's perfectly matched with my initial purposes. So first of all, about the first 5 minutes, well, actually, this is the lesson plan for A2 level, and in 45 minutes. So for the first 5 minutes, I would like to provide some picture of popular TV program and ask the student to tell the name. Like, I don't use the pictures in the textbook, but I use my own. I search for some pictures on the internet. And for example, I'm gonna give some pictures about the news, so they can say, yeah, it is the news. Or I can give some kind of pictures about the Ellen show, the super brain competition, something like that. So they're gonna tell me the name of the program. And after that, they're gonna review the topic, television, and all of the things relating to the given pictures is about television. So I'm gonna ask my student to give more or the idea or the concept that we would like to talk about by drawing a mind map on the board. So for example, I got the word TV here. So I'm gonna ask them to give all the things that we'd like to talk about. So here is the result. Some of them would like to talk about the shows, like our trending show or trendy show, like some famous film or MC, or even some of them like talk about the viewers. All right, so from this one, I know that how knowledgeable my students are. So I'm gonna, adjust my way of teaching. That is the first 5 minutes. For the next 25 minutes, so you can see here, I don't go with the flow number 1A, 1B, 1C. I don't go like that. I go like 1A and 2. Why is that? Because as I said before, I analyze the flow of the lesson, and this is the way I choose for my student. So first of all, I play the audio and require the student to read individually and underline any new words or phrases in the conversation between Phong and Hưng here on page 8. And the next step, I ask students to read the conversation in pair. Next one, I'm gonna provide some useful sentence or difficult phrases from the conversation. Well, actually, they already give me the information that, yeah, teachers, I don't know this word, or what does that mean? So I'm gonna explain, okay? And last one, that is section 1A. My students gonna answer the question in the textbook to understand the conversation. And then I'm gonna provide them with some new words, some new programs they may not know. For example, you can see in the exercise 2, they need to fill the word into the blank from number 1 to number 6. For example, first of all, we're going to be 3 pictures. It's gonna be a kind of national television. So I'm gonna explain what is the national television and local television. So you're gonna give idea, or they're gonna compare based on the content of the program, the number of the program in each channel. That's it. So that is the first part about the new words about the program. Okay, so that is 30 minutes already. So we already have 15 minutes left. So what are we gonna do in the 15 minutes left? Remember, I have 2 adjectives. So the first adjective is already, achieved. What about the second adjective? It's about the adjective, right? So this is a real one. So basically already they finished the first part. So this is the end of the first part. They already know how to compare the local television and national television. And this is the last 15 minutes. So I'm gonna provide some adjectives. Well, actually, some of them may know the easy word, for example, the word good or long or funny or boring. So for the other difficult adjective, I'm gonna give them by the pictures here. For example, like I start with the popular. You can see there are 4 people here, which means there are a large number of people. So when something become well known or most of people know about it, it's called popular. Same thing with educational. Like you can see the teacher are teaching on the board. So maybe they giving some knowledge or information about something. So we call it educational, okay? Entertaining, of course, this is not a bowl of noodle, it is a drum. So when our students look at the drum here, you say that's something very happy, or something relaxing, especially when you listen to a song or play an instrument, something. So it's called entertaining. Okay, I'm gonna explain like that. And after that, I'm gonna give some kind of example. So my student need to give me the adjective that I would like to talk about. For example, I'm gonna talk about meet a bean. So when they heard the word meet a bean or the image of the word meet a bean, they're gonna tell me, yeah, teachers, maybe the adjective can be funny. Yeah, that's right. Perfect. And they are gonna give some kind of the game show, for example, Show Me the Money game show. So they're gonna say, oh, this program is very entertaining because when I listen to the song, I feel relaxed. So they already understand the meaning of these adjectives. They already know the adjective, they already know the meaning. I'm gonna move on to check the real practice. Well, actually, I don't stop by teaching adjective. I'm gonna want my student to go further. So I'm gonna come to the next part. Right, so they already know the nouns of a program, the adjective. So I would like them to talk about the program, the real program. So they can see on the slide here, it is Animal Planet. So I asked students to describe this animal, so that this program, so they can say, I think this program, it's about animals, or I think this is gonna be about the natural world, and I think it's an international channel, and this channels can be very educational or funny. Okay, same thing here. I'm gonna go until the end of the lesson, and after that I go to the conclusion. That's why. So ask about all the lesson plan here. All right. So this is the last 15 minutes. So the adjectives that I provide them, it's from 1C section. So that is the second section in my lesson plan. I don't go 1A, 1B, 1C. No, it's not my order. All right. So like you, I would like to revise, or not revise, but it's kind of just a second look at this. So they're gonna have 5 section in a little bit continuum. And you can see that the main purpose of teaching any kind of languages is about how to pronounce or communicate with others. That is the final purpose or achievement. So there are 5 sections. This is very useful for my next part. So please pay attention. We have non-communicative learning, pre-communicative, communicative language practice, structured communication, authentic communication. So let's move on. So well, actually, I got here the whole lesson plan. So I would like you to share your idea about what I'm going to do in each activities. For example, in the first 5 minutes, I got 2 activities, okay? I got 2 activities, and this one, you also can give some idea by typing in the task box that what kind of section that fit with Littlewood continuum. For example, first one, provide some pictures. So what can be the section here? It is non-communicative or pre-communicative or something. So can be the first example for you. So actually the first activity, it is communicative learning, and it's more focused on meaning rather than on form. Why is that? Because they need to base on their own knowledge. There's no structure. There is no new words before. Okay, so it is called, I think it's a communicative language, and it's more focused on meaning or form. So the second one, the second activity in the first 5 minutes, students give the idea of what they like to talk about when studying about TV. Well, actually, it should be authentic communication, and it's more focused on meaning. Why? The same thing here, it's also based on their own knowledge, and there is no supporting pictures, no pronunciation, something like that. So they can base on their own brain and give the idea. So it is a real case of communication. So it's called authentic communication. For the next 25 minutes, I also have 4 sections here. All right, so I can have 4 sections here. The same thing, what can be the first activities? Activities like, oh yeah, I play the audio and require the student to read individually and underline any new words or phrase. So actually it's something relating the pronunciation and listening only. They just need to pay attention to the, how to pronounce the word, even they don't know the meaning of the word yet. So they just pay attention to how the word is pronounced. And number 2, I asked students to read the conversation in pair. Same thing, it's just about checking pronunciation, no meanings provided. Number 3, provide some useful sentence and difficult phrases. And I'm going to be the one who explain, that's why I give them some meaning. And ask students to read question in the textbook to understand the conversation, but actually it's relating the meaning also. So it's going to be some section in Littlewood continuum that you can see here. So number 1, it's form and meaning. I mean, I focus on form more than meaning. Number 2, only on form. Number 3, form and meanings, and it's more on form. And number 4, meaning and form. Well, number 4, they understand and answer the question. So they need to understand the meaning of every single word in the conversation. And what about the form here, number 4? Well, some of the students just tell me a word only, but some of the students tell me a full sentence. So it's based on the form. And last one, number 15. So I present and teach some adjective to describe some program and show the pictures. So they have to describe the pictures by using the given words, both nouns and adjective. So well, actually it's pre-communication based on form, because I am the one who gives them the structure of the word. And the second activity is about structural communication. Well, why not? It is authentic communication, because this one, I asked them to use the word and the adjective, the nouns that I taught. That's why it's based on, they already know about the word in the lesson. It's not based on about their own experience. So you may know that, well, you may know that, like I say, the main purpose of a lesson, any kind of lesson or languages, is about communication. So what can be the result? How can you evaluate the student, and how can you know that your lesson is successful or not? Yeah, just by assessment system. So what is the result? So after the lesson, they know about the program, they know about the adjective. So here is the result. Surprisingly, 80% of my students understand the word and the meaning of the lesson. So actually, how can I evaluate them? I got two channels or 2 systems. Like first of all, I'm gonna ask them directly, or they're gonna play games, right? Like, do you know the game Travel the World? Yes, they're gonna do the game and they're gonna defeat their friend by telling me the words that I try to explain. And the second way of test is like 10 minutes test for the new words. They're gonna have to do this one. So yeah, 80% of them remember the words. I think it's quite successfully accomplished, right? So maybe it's all about my presentation. So I hope that my presentation will help you to have more, and you can, you can define your activities based on the little book continuum. Well, actually, I need to say that there are so many other ways to design your lesson, but this is my way, and I found that the result is not that bad. So I think it's successfully accomplished. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dung, for your practical, illustrative, and engaging presentation. I can see in the chat box, the participants just comment that they very impressed by your presentation, by their images and illustrations in the lessons. Okay, well, so Dung had just presented her lesson based on and designed the lesson plans based on the literature continuum of focusing on forms and focusing on meaning. So maybe after this webinar, we hope that maybe some of you here are inspired from the framework and can get the framework as a direction or a roadmap for you to direct your design of lesson plans at Zoom. Okay, so it's time for me to move on to the last speaker today. She is from Đoàn Thị Điểm Primary School, and she will present a lesson, a real lesson to us with another way. Okay, welcome Cha to the stage. Can you unmute yourself? Unmute yourself. Try again. Oh, sorry for about the
You can unmute yourself now.
apology. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Hi, everyone. My name is Chang, and I have been working as an English teacher for 7 years. And for 7 years, I have been working in the Đoàn Thị Điểm Primary School. But today, I'm going to give you not the primary lesson, but the lower secondary lesson. First of all, I would like you to watch a short video, and then can you type in the chat box what were you inspired by? Okay. Okay, you have a few seconds and type what were you inspired by. Music, okay.
The participant, you can type your answers, what you impressed, right? The impression on the video, right, Chang?
Yeah, right. What were you impressed by the video?
Okay, what have you been impressed by the video? Okay, you can text in the chat box, please.
Photos and music and images. Can you be more detailed, like traditional clothes, good. Landscape, ethnic minority. Yeah, custom, thank you. Oh, wow, good. Those also the answer from my students when they watch this video. And after I show my student this video, they're going to answer, they're going to elicit what they have been impressed. And then I'm going to lead the student in the topic of the lesson. So can you guess what is the topic of the lesson today? Can you type in the chat box based on the video? Can you guess what is the topic about? The beauty of Thai women, okay? custom of ethnic minority, country, traveling minority, ethnic peoples. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to show my student the video, and then I'm going to ask students to guess the topic of the lesson. So the student are engaged and get curiosity to the lesson. And the objectives of the lesson today is that after the lesson, the student will be able to read and pick the information about the life of an ethnic group, which means they have to focus on the meaning. And next, the student will be able to talk about the life of an ethnic group, which means focus on form. And my lesson is start from meaning, and then we follow, and then we go to form. From meaning, we get the form to talk about the life of an ethnic group. So after I ask students to guess the topic, I'm going to give the student about 1 minute to skim the text and compare with the idea to see if the guessing is correct or not. And after that, after we compare the idea and we see, oh, the topic today is about the life of an ethnic group, and I'm going to show the students some new words that I think may be useful and maybe students don't know. And after I write these words on board, I'm going to ask if anyone can help me to elicit, to explain this word to the students. And for the student, first of all, ask students to help each other, to try to explain to each other. And if there are some words that students don't know, no one knows, I'm going to help students to explain, to use the strategy as Dr. Ling has given us at the beginning of the webinar. And after we show students this word, this vocabulary, I may ask students to listen and repeat for a few times. And this lesson is in the grade 8, the book. So students in grade 8, they can make sentences. And if we have time, teachers have time, we can ask students to play a short game like make sentence with this word. And if not, we can move on to the next part, that the student have to work in group and read out loud. The purpose of read out loud is to get student focus on the reading text. And after student practice reading the text, I'm going to ask student to work with the exercise 1, like find the correct word in the text to fill in the blank. Before it, I'm going to give the student the reading strategy. Okay, I'm going to show the student the first one example, the Thai are good, blah, 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 and they grow different crops. So I asked students, where can I find the answer for this? And my students are really good. They say that we can underline the keywords and we can find the information around the keywords. And I asked students which keywords here, the Thai or what? Some students say the Thai and some students say different crops. And I explained that the Thai can be quite a lot because the Thai appears in all the 4 paragraphs. So can you narrow down? And the students say, maybe the keywords are different crops, and they read the information around the keywords driven crops, and they find. But I asked students that there's no word good in this. So what is that? And the students said there is a synonym like the good is experience. And the answer is farmer. So after we practice with the reading strategy, the student work on with exercise 2. They have a few minutes to work, and then we're going to check. There's also a note in this lesson, this on the still. I asked students that why in the paragraph is stills, plural, but here is stilt, singular. And students have to think for a while, and they think that it's adjective, but actually it's not. And there is one good student. He explained that because it's a compound noun, so the first noun is singular here. So here we still focus on a little bit on forms with a mixture between form and meaning. And then the student going to work with exercise 3 for the reading comprehension. In this exercise 2 and 3, we focus quite a lot on the meaning that students have to read and figure out the ideas. And after that, after we practice with the reading strategy, we complete with the focusing on meaning, and now we move to focus on form. That I'm going to work with the student with a jigsaw activity. It's easy like that because as students open the book, in the book there is 2 ethnic groups, that Rubenkiel and the Khmer, and I don't want to use that because it's already in the book, so students can know the information. So I designed 2 more groups, that the Dao people and the Tay people, and students are going to work in pairs. One student had the information of Dao people and had to find information about the Tay people. And the other person have the information about the Tay people and have to find information about the Dao people. And the focus on form here is that students provide information about population, regions, language, production activities, and festival. So students have to work on the question. They want to find information about the population. So how can they make the question? How can they make the correct question to ask about the population? And here, the teachers and the student are going to working and going to focus on form. That I support the student to work on the question. For example, for population, you may ask, what is the population of? What is the population of the Dao group, or what is the population of the Tay group? And also for regions, language, production activities, and festival, we continuously working on this to support, to elicit, to have students to figure out the question to ask. And after that, the student have a few minutes to ask and find and complete the table about the information about the ethnic group. And after that, at the end of the lesson, if we have more time, we can ask students to present. Based on the information, students can present about the life of ethnic group, or we can set it as a home task. So the student can go home and based on the information to write a full text, like in the book, about the life of one ethnic group. So that, as you can see that clearly, first for the reading, we focus on meaning. And after we read, we can see that in that reading text, they provide some structure, some grammar point to work with. The next one is the speaking, to work on to focus on form, to focus on the grammar, to focus on the question, to find the information. And by starting on meaning, we get the student to be engaged in the lesson, to understand that they have to read to find the information. So after they read to find information, they understand how to talk about the life of an ethnic group, how to write a text about the life of an ethnic group. And that is the purposeful idea to go from meaning to form. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Xiang, for your great lesson and explanation of pedagogy and other techniques that you have used in your lesson. Actually, there is a very interesting question about your design of the lesson. Which software or which version that you have used to design your presentation? Can you answer Miss Mr. or Mrs. Dung Nguyen?
Another webinar.
You can take a little bit time to answer him or her on this.
Yeah, for the software, because I use the Microsoft from Microsoft 365, so they provide all the template, and I have just to use.
So it can be embedded in Teams as well. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you all the speakers for your wonderful and engaging presentations. I've noticed that in the chat box and maybe in their live stream, the participants have truly enjoyed what you have shared. And I believe that they will learn and get a lot of inspiration from your sharing. And I hope that they will be ready and, to apply what you have shared in the real lessons. So I think we should take a little bit time, maybe 20 minutes on discussion and Q&A, right? So I think maybe you can put your questions on your chat box, or maybe you can raise your voice. I will give three chances for 3 people to raise your voice, to raise your questions to the speakers. And any one of you here can leave comments or feedback or questions on the chat box. Okay, so think about the speakers sharing and then put them some questions.
So in case you would like to raise your voice, please raise your hand first. So the host and co-host can unmute your micro.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ms. Lan Hyun. Okay, because to assure the quality of the webinar, so VTSO Association have to mute you because there is some background noise that affect the quality and the flow of the presentation. So that's why now if you want to raise your voice, you can raise your hand first and then we will unmute you. Okay, so 3 people can directly put the questions to the speakers and anyone can leave the questions in the chat box. All right, so I think I will read the question in the chat box first and then you guys can have time to think more. Miss from Meter or Miss Dung Nguyen, regarding Miss Chang's presentation, I would like to ask what if students show each other their information without asking the questions in the jigsaw activity?
Interesting questions. Yeah, students can just cheat. Yeah, they just show it. They don't actually exchange ideas.
Yes, that is a pattern normal. That's normally happen in the jigsaw activity. Now, so Ms. Chang, can you answer this question? What if students show each other the information without asking the question? What should you do?
Well, maybe at the first, before we start the activity, we should set the rules. So the student can observe each other while they're working. And if there is, actually, I don't want students to spend a lot of time on observing other. I want them to focus on the lesson. So I think that is irresistible, that very difficult to avoid. So just first of all, I would like to show the rules, and I would like to express that I truly trust in them. I truly trust that they are going to work on well. They're going to not to cheat. By showing my trust, I think that maybe they will not do that to
Okay. I think class management technique can partially help as well. If you ask students on one row to turn around to talk to students on the other row to form groups, and then because they change the role, so they are opposite to each other, they communicate face to face. So that can limit their chance of showing the information to each other. And because we put them in with another partner, they may think that, oh, the teacher is keeping an eye on us, right? And then they actually do the task. Or if the room is not too crowded, we can even ask them to line up, and one person on this line will talk to the other one, but it takes time. Yeah, so it depends. You can decide what class management techniques can help a little. Right.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ling, for just supporting the answer. Okay, so I think I have just seen one raised hand here. Is there may be Đoàn NT? Actually, that's just a nickname, Đoàn NT. So if you, I just saw her just raise her hand. So.
It's me.
Okay.
It's me. Yeah. Thank you all for your presentation, especially Lin and Jung and Trang, right? So I'd like to raise one question. For example, how can we integrate form and meaning to develop student critical thinking based on your presentation? Yeah, it's really important, and we can maintain communication in the classroom.
Yeah, so can I answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just on top of my head. So if you have other suggestions and we can discuss, I would highly welcome that. So I think the fact that we teach everything from context, and from context we elicit the meaning. That's why the students have to think. Yeah, it's one way for the student to link the meaning in that context, and then we highlight the form, and they have to link the form with the meaning. Then you have to think as well. So
of course,
by using that sequence, we ask the students to link all the time, but with some scaffolding. Then I believe that they can develop their critical thinking, analyzing ability at least. Did I answer your question?
Of course, you have already answered my question, but
yeah, please, other people, please, yeah, other people, opinion from others as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chang, for today. Yeah, and because this one not only related to the topic of the webinar today is about focusing on meaning or form, but also the question is about critical thinking skills. And Ling also say that it can develop the students' analyzing cognitive skills. But before that, they can also develop some kind of very the lower level. I mean, when you look at the Bloom taxonomy or analyzing, they also have other cognitive skills. Yeah, before that, it is understanding and interpreting, and applying. And after that, they can move on to other cognitive skills, that is analyzing, as Dr. Ling has just mentioned, and also some kind of other like evaluating and creating. I'm mentioning the revised Bloom taxonomy. Thank you so much. That's what I'm working with now.
Yeah. Thank you, but I do quite agree with you. But then I think that even though just very lower level, we can encourage students to promote their critical thinking. For example, based on Lynn's presentation, an image of a bicycle, and based on what else the next presenter, Jung, for the information of the TV programs. Then we can base on the image to promote critical thinking by providing scaffolding, very simple techniques that we sometimes forget it. For example, in case of an image of a bicycle, we can just ask very simple questions to encourage student thinking based on Tam Trang's mentioned that Bloom taxonomy. For example, we can ask just why do people, for example, ride bicycle, and what do bicycle used for, to encourage students to think more about the abstract meaning of a bicycle, of an image only. Just think about this. I just would like to add one more information for you guys to think about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. That is the questioning skills related to critical thinking development. Yeah, that's
right.
Thank you so much.
So in terms of pedagogy, elicitation and concept check questions are the two things, the two issues, the two terminologies that teachers need to explore more in order to answer Ms. Trang's question, right?
Yeah.
Patient and concept check question.
For example, in the class, there are many levels. For example, a lower level student, they can respond directly to the question. But for example, higher level student, they can say, oh, people ride bicycle to protect the environment, for example. This is critical, one kind of critical thinking. And then we elaborate more on the topic of discussion. This is also focused on form and meaning, but it also remains the communication in the classroom to encourage students to speak more in the classroom that we normally forget it. Yeah. Just add one more information.
That's great. And one more thing that I would also like to add after Dr. Chang's comment is that we not only elicit questions for the students to answer, to think, but we also instruct them how to make questions themselves so that they can develop their questioning skills.
Yeah. And in this case, can I add one more thing? For example, by asking students to put question, to ask question, and then after that, as a wrap up of the lesson, we can ask students to write some benefit of riding bicycle, for example. And then we link from teaching vocabulary to form meaning, and then from writing. Just very simple sentences. For example, if lower student class in the countryside.
Ms. Trang, you remind me of a question that many teachers often ask at the end of the lesson. Class, tell me, what have we learned so far? Actually, I don't like that question at all. How can the students answer? So instead of asking what have we learned, you need to write down particular questions, more specific ones, so that the student, if they can answer those specific questions, then they have learned it. If not, not yet. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your...
It's great to see you all here. So happy.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chang, and and everyone for for contributing to the topic with wonderful ideas. I have seen in the chat box another question, and I think it's also interesting. It's by Miss Ling Lei, maybe Dr. Ling, maybe from Melbourne. I don't know, but I just guess. She's just wondering if integrating meaning and form is in Vietnamese context is too idealistic due to the class sign. And one of you can think of the question. Due to the class sign, whether the class sign may prevent from applying and blending meaning and form.
Yeah, welcome answers from others. I'm typing my question on the text box. Right.
Anyone, just maybe Ms. Huang, from your experience, can you, and from the position of the manager and the administrator and the teacher trainer, can you answer this question? Whether the class size, the big class size is a factor preventing the blended form and meaning in our classroom?
In my role teaching situation, the class size is one of the problems that the teachers usually meet during the teaching. And it's also makes a difficulty for the teacher to apply in their technique in the teachings. However, the other thing, I think that the other thing that the teaching techniques and the classroom management is also very important for the teachers when they want to have the student to move from the form to the meaning. And I mean that in the teaching procedures, the student had to think about it. How can we deliver the teaching activity to have all the students to get the objective of the lesson? And as Duan have already shared with us that it depends on the student language level competencies to ask the student to do what. I mean that we need to set the objective of the lesson for each level student, for the good student, for the weak student. So based on that, we can choose the activity, the task to help the student. I mean that the level of difficulty of the task. We cannot miss the task related to the meaning, focus on meaning, but we can lower the objective for the student. Like Doan already said that after we teach the student about how to use a bicycle. So if the good student can write a paragraph about it, but for the weak student, just some sentences, some simple sentences. So it's also depend on the teachers setting the objective for the lesson. So the class size is only one of the, I mean that the difficulty, but it's not the main difficulty for the teacher to have the student to gain the objective of the next lesson. When we move from the form to the meaning, or move from the non-communicative to the authentic communication. Okay, so I think that.
Thank you, Ms. Hyun. Is there any one of you wanting to add some ideas, like Miss Ling or Chang or ask? Do you want to add some more ideas about this? And I want to ask if the answer partly accommodates your questions, Miss Ling. If you are satisfied with the answer, can you type in the chat box that we can move on to the maybe just partly. I think, maybe just partly address the question, but because we have another question. So yes, from the chat box, I also got a very interesting question, and I think it's a very conventional problem or challenge for teachers. Like we are teaching mixed ability class, and how can we balance teaching methods between high achievers and low achievers? Do weak students need more support? For example, in the past, we adopted the grammar translation method, and it's quite useful for the beginners who have no background or linguistic background. But imagine nowadays we still have such kind of students. How can we balance the low achievers and high achievers? That's a very interesting and very big question.
Yeah, very big question.
Mm-hmm. Any one of you wants to answer this? And I found out that Miss Chang, maybe Miss Tam Chang just
raise hand.
Gave us some suggestions. Mm-hmm. And I do like her idea, like maybe for achievers or for lower achievers, we can get support from the high achievers. It means that you can pair them up, or maybe you can ask them work in groups and then assign their support from the high achievers to lower achievers. And this is one way, but I know that it's difficult to design the activities, right? And Chang also suggests Hương Giang read the book about differentiated learning, yes, and teaching. But I think maybe it's quite difficult to adopt differentiation in teaching and learning in traditional classes in Vietnam as well, because time is always a matter, right? And exam as well.
Yeah.
So to me, I think I often use a flipped classroom. It means when I have a chance to meet my students face to face, I often make use of my time to help them solve the problems. The communication always, kind of encouraged during the lesson. But all the form and meaning exercises are fulfilled at home rather than in class time. So that's why I have more time with my students to support them to support their understanding and their acquisition of form and meaning. Normally just spend about 20 minutes on revising form and meaning and revising vocabulary, the target vocabulary at the beginning of the lesson. And also I encourage my students to get involved in communicative tasks during class time. So maybe you can, Miss Yang, maybe in the webinar, the next webinar, we will talk about the flipped classroom, how we can blend flipped learning in our classroom. And I'm delighted to be one of the speakers because I have used to research flipped classroom about 6 years ago. And I found out that it's very interesting and applicable when we meet the time as a challenge. Yeah. And because nowadays we can get connected with our students in social media and other, and very easy, it's very easy for them to get access to the platforms, and online learning now is very commonplace for them. So that's why maybe we can make use of this kind of tools so that they can get more form and focus exercises at home, watch a video at home, and then when they come to class, they can just need to, you know, get involved in more communicative and authentic communication tasks. So my suggestion is just like that at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your suggestion. And I think that, like other teachers, we are waiting for that topic on our calendar for the webinars.
Later. Maybe later. Okay.
Yeah, it seems that we have more questions on Facebook.
Okay. On Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I didn't have a time.
Could you please have a look at the questions that
you shared on the secretary shared, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our secretary today.
Yeah. So
I don't see any question more in the chat box actually.
Not chat box.
Please have a look at the link.
Right. So
to
can I
the
just
Google Doc.
can I just read, right?
Yeah,
So I just read it. It is in Vietnamese, right? Sách tiếng Anh 6 Unit 1. A closer look 2 rất khó để dạy cho học sinh vùng nông thôn trong 45 phút với nội dung grammar dài như vậy. Làm sao để rút gọn kiến thức trong tiết dạy này à? Thanks.
Okay.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's very practical, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Share that.
after receiving that question, I have a look at closer look here. So just for you to have a look, we have a new context here, right? And then we have some gaps here for the student to put the verbs into the correct form. Yeah, and here we have the structures, and then we have more practice, and then okay, more structures. All right. So
we have another page. We have another page for this one.
Oh,
it has 2 pages. Yes, this
yeah,
one.
2 pages, and then and then listen to the conversation from getting started again. I would like to focus on this one. All right, and have more here, and then here. Right, so
And
too
then,
long.
Yeah, this one. Yeah.
Too long. Right. So if I were put in this situation, I think I would refer back to getting started and I highlight the parts with the target language here, the target structures here. So as I told you before, the parts are interconnected, right? So getting started serves as the context for the target language. May I use this opportunity to answer another question as well? They ask, for getting started, it seems that teachers focus too much on teaching vocabulary without highlighting it is the context for later use. So my answers would be in the first period of each question, the teachers just need to set up the context using the pictures and the audio and the reading in that part to highlight and teach vocabulary as what you have just noticed from teachers. But later on, when you continue with other parts, it is you to link it back so that the students understand that, we learned something already. And that way we refer back to getting started as a context. So here, this is one example. So back to this main question about too long lesson. So I know that my suggestions may be an ideal one, but if I were you, what I would do would be partially chop the exercises here in half. I don't cut out the whole exercise or the whole sections, but maybe chopped in half. All right, and then I still conduct a lesson, a grammar-based lesson with the sequence. One of the 3 approaches I shared with you earlier, maybe the last one, the context-based, or the last one. And then when it's time to practice here, because we highlighted target language in the conversation in getting started already, and highlight the meaning, when to use simple present, right? And after that, we compare the difference between present simple and present continuous already. Then I just cut half of this exercise to elicit and then to help everyone to do in the class, leaving the others for homework. Right, so again, but of course it's up to you to decide whether to go with which part first. So for me, I would still from the getting started dialogue there, conversation there, I would continue with this conversation because it's kind of similar. And I also make use of the picture here to set up a new context. And then I highlight the part about, this one is simple present. So I would ask some questions so that they know that this is the background information about Duy, not the thing that he's doing, so on. So students can work out the meaning of the structure, and then they analyze the context here, and they see whether it is background knowledge, and then they put the verb forms correctly, and then we move on. So again, my brief answer is that I would spend time on part of the exercise here if we don't have enough time. But I would, you can skip 1 or 2 if you think it's focused too much on form, but you have a strong class. In your question, you have weak class, right, with students. And then maybe the key is that you can highlight, you can elicit the meaning from the dialogue so that they understand exactly when to use simple present and when to use present continuous. And then we help them analyzing the forms in here, the meaning within the forms, so that they can do it correctly. If we cannot finish 1 or 2 sentences in each part, it's okay. They can do it at home later, and we check later. I don't like the instructions here in the teacher's book. Here they say, for first one, let students do the task individually. Teacher corrects the answer or give explanation if necessary. This instruction doesn't work. If the students just do exactly like this, the teacher do exactly like this, without any rationale, without understanding of the nature of each exercise or each task, then they fail teaching it communicatively. Yeah, so did I answer your question?
Maybe because the question is from the Facebook.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe he or she is not here. But thank you so much for your clear and detailed explanation.
Yeah, and I think that Dr. Linh also, the content or the suggestion from Dr. Linh also linked to Ngọc Anh's suggestion previously about the flipped classroom. Maybe before going to class, teacher may provide students with something so that they can prepare for that before going to class.
Then they don't have to go to extra classes, use the time to do this. But they go to extra classes for tests. Right.
Right.
Other
Okay.
exercise.
I have seen a lot of suggestions from the participants in the chat box.
Yeah.
Okay, like
link.
we provide students with the home link, such as making a mind map of simple present, because the grammar focus unit of the unit is about present simple, simple present tense. Yes. All right. Okay, so I think that we just about spend about some minutes on only one question, the last question. Any one of you wants to raise
So
your...
can I just randomly pick another question from here?
Okay.
I have another question saying that students complain that there are too many new words in a lesson, which causes difficulty for them to do the practice.
It's
interesting, isn't it? Again, for weak students. Yeah.
And because there is a phenomenon that students nowadays are quite lazy to learn new words.
Yeah, but I would argue that yeah, it's undeniable, but maybe instead of we need to work out what are the keywords for understanding first. And then there are new words, but that can be worked out from the context in the test. And if we really have students develop reading skills, they can work out the meanings in context, and that lower the number of new words that need to be put in the notebook before the reading text, the reading lesson. And another way is I find that many teachers provide a list of vocabulary before the reading so that the students can look up in dictionary. I don't like that way, because if you do that too much, not just do that, it is likely that the students cannot develop reading skills, right? So I think pre-teach the vocabulary is something essential. Right.
I think one of the problems that leads to the lack of vocabulary among students, when they find that the vocabulary is too large to learn, or maybe they find out there are too many words, it means that they don't have, it could be a problem, it could be a situation that they don't have a chances to revise them, so that they cannot keep them in their mind, so that every time they meet them, it's new, right? But another situation could be that they don't have find interesting ways to systematize, or maybe to keep the vocabulary record, because I think if teachers can show some interesting ways to, you know, to list the vocabulary, or maybe to systematize the vocabulary, such as the mind maps as suggested by a participant in this chat box, or maybe in more visual ways, I think that maybe they find more motivation to learn vocabulary, and then they can keep them more in their mind. Because yeah, because when they just list the vocabulary in the linear way or in the traditional way in the booklet, maybe they don't find them interesting to learn, and then they can forget them easily. So it means that another time when they meet this kind of the vocabulary, they can find them new. So I think it depends. It's also based on the problem need to be addressed. Back to the teaching method, the vocabulary teaching methods as well, and the presentation of vocabulary as well. So we need back to the teachers.
Yeah, thank you, Ngọc Anh. And I think we have here another question that may trigger some that can provoke some thoughts for later webinars. Right, so they say, how can teachers balance the watchback of high school graduation tests and the actual teaching, especially in remote areas?
That's a very important question.
Yeah, and practical too.
It's a very critical time to you know, to deliver such question. because we just have got the result from high-stake exam, right? So yes, it's a very difficult question and very big one that maybe we cannot have a time and capacity to answer.
Yeah, but one direction is that we need to look at tests more communicatively, testing more communicatively. Of course, it's ideally if we can make all the tests communicatively, but at least in the current situation, with the current state, if we are equipped with a perspective, a lens to look at the communicative or the meaning, that means the communicative elements in the test papers, we can still find the link between communicative teaching and those test papers, because I spent several years analyzing test papers and think of ways to improve it, to make it also multiple choice, gap fillings, but a little bit more communicatively. Yeah, so it may be another webinar. I'm sorry. It's too much for today, right?
All right. Okay, so I think it's time to wrap up some key takeaways for the webinar before we close the webinar today. On the behalf of the organizing committee, I again thank you so much, Dr. Ling and other Ms. Chang, Ms. Dung, and Ms. Hương for your engaging and wonderful presentations. Your sharing is highly appreciated among us, and actually, to me, I just want to share my personal impression on your sharing, and then I hope that from me, you guys here, maybe more than 100 participants here, and more than that in the live stream, you can leave your own reflections upon their sharing, and from your reflection, you can get more lessons for your real teaching practices. I am highly impressed by 3 techniques of teaching vocabulary from Dr. Ling. They are text-based, when you analyze a text and then get meaning from the text and get vocabulary meaning, and teach, test, teach, right? Test, teach, test, sorry, the second way. And the last way is a context build. And they are very impressive, and I can learn a lot from you guys. And also the continuum of Literature, from focus on forms and focus on meaning, with some, stages from non-communicative tasks to authentic communication. And also some kinds of like how we can analyze the sections in the new textbook with the form and meaning focus, and based on the little continuum, and also the applications from the real lessons delivered by Chang and Dung, and also the analysis into the textbook units by Hương. So maybe after this webinar, the organizing committee will send you this, upload their PowerPoint slides from the speakers, and then so that you can get access to them, and then you get more source, more ideas from looking at them. Okay, so I think if you don't have any question, or because it's time too late now, so I think we should close the webinar, and then look forward to seeing you guys in the next webinar. Thank you again for your participation and your and your contributing contributing ideas to the webinar discussion. Okay, so
thank you so much, Ngọc Anh. To all the participants, please fill in the link with the questions from Dr. Ling about the content of the webinar today, and leave us some kind of comments how we can improve the quality of the webinars with the link.
Yes.
You can find it in the
comments or feedback on the webinar so that we can improve the quality for the next one. And also, please, I think that we also have a link so that they can get access to answering some questions as of evidence for them, as evidence of their attendance.
Yes,
then
that
get
is in the
action,
chat box.
right? Okay, so please visit the link in the chat box by our secretary, Miss Ling Nguyen, and then you can, or Miss Tâm Cha, and then you can get access to the questions so that we can get evidence of your attendance, and then we can send you a certificate of recognition. All right. Okay, so thank you again, and then look forward to seeing you guys in the next webinar.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. See you.
See ya.
Thank you.